Hey guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to be building this really simple beehive stand. We're getting in our honeybees this weekend, so I got to get this all set up, ready for them to go. Now this is our very first hive that we're starting, so I want to get a feel for these honeybees and how to do it. My wife's already done a ton of research on this, so we have a pretty good idea how to raise these and take care of them. But if you have any experience with honeybees, we would definitely appreciate any tips or advice that you have, so please leave that down in the comment section down below. Now I'm going to be building a very simple bee stand for the hive to set on. I'm going to be building this out of 4x4s for the legs and then deck boards for the top of the stand. And because this is outdoors, it really needs to be pressure treated for it to last a lot longer instead of just rotting right out. For the top of the 4x4s, I'm going to be notching this so that the board that's holding all the legs together that goes around the top is going to be notched into the 4x4 and sit flush with the 4x4 legs. In order to fit into the corner, I need to notch two sides, so I'm going to rotate all of these clockwise and then cut another slit on this side as well. Now once you have those two slits cut, you can come back with the chisel and try to break out the excess wood. I have a little bit easier way to do this that's a little more controlled. Instead of depending on the wood grain, it might be a little more difficult if the wood grain isn't very straight. This is going to be a lot harder. So instead of this, I'm going to come back with a circular saw and show you in just a minute how to do that and maybe save a little bit of time. The wood grain is really crooked here and it's not going to work very easily. To use the chisel, you'd have to take very small amounts and it's going to take a lot longer. So I'm going to set these back down on the ground, clamp them together, and use the circular saw to cut a few more notches in this. So what I'm doing here is cutting slits about 1/2 inch apart. If it goes a little bit more or less than that, that's perfectly fine. You don't want it to get too thick or else you're going to run into the same issue with the wood grain controlling the chisel a little too much with this. Now I'll come back to the second side as well and cut the slits that I need down that side. And then you'll see once I'm done, all these chunks of wood will break out a whole lot easier. All you need to do is bring a hammer to it, tap on it lightly, and this will break right out and it'll remove most of the wood from what you need to take out. Now there might be a few pieces that you're going to have to use this chisel just to clean up, but that takes out the bulk of the wood really fast and is a lot easier than trying to chisel all of it out. Now because I notched this so thin, I can come back with the chisel and don't even need a hammer to tap on this. You just push with your hand and it will split out all the excess and it's really easy to clean up now. I have all 4 legs notched. I'm going to start assembling the stand. Now I'm going to be using the deck boards for the top like I mentioned. I'm going to be ripping these down the middle so that they're a lot thinner and smaller. This is a pretty small stand and for the proportions it looks a lot better to just have a thin piece of wood instead of the full 6-inch piece of deck board. Now the dimensions for this don't have to be exactly the same. I guess it really just depends on what your preference is and the size of your hive. I'm going to be doing this to fit our hive that we purchased and it's going to be 18 inches by 24-inch tabletop. That will give us a little bit of room on either side of the hive to set tools down on. While we're working on the hive, we can have a place to set things down and not get lost in the grass around it. Now I'm also going to be making this stand 18 inches tall, and that also comes down to preference. It's a pretty good height for the hive to be off of the ground. You can work on it easily, but it's not too tall to where it's getting a little out of reach once the hive gets a little bit taller. Now for the top, I'm going to be using those deck boards again, ripped down the middle, and I'll be cutting those close to 18 inches for the top going across, and I'll be attaching these with deck screws as well. Now that's the stand finished. It's really simple, easy to build. If you wanted to make it even easier, you probably didn't need to notch the 4x4s if you didn't want to. Those can just go on the inside of those boards and it would be just fine. Next, I'm going to go outside and gather up some rocks to edge around the area that I'm going to be placing the bee stand, and put some gravel down, making sure that it's nice and level. You don't want this toppling over in a storm if it's not level or stable. Now you may notice I'm pulling some trash out of the creek. I really need to come down here and clean this up. Upstream just a little ways, there's not a great neighborhood and a lot of trash is being dumped in here. Some shopping carts, hot water tanks, car doors, all sorts of stuff is through this section of creek that I own. I know it'll probably get filled right back up after a little while, but I do want to come down here at some point and clean this out and do my part. Now I'm not normally very vocal about environmental stuff, but this does make me pretty mad when there's this much junk in this small creek that only starts maybe 2 miles upstream. Now I've got enough rocks for edging around the beehive. I'm going to drag those back up to the house and get started. I'm going to be setting up the beehive right along the edge of the woods. It's still pretty close to the creek so that they can get plenty of water down there. It's a good distance away from where my girls will be playing in the yard, and it will keep them away from the beehive so they don't end up bumping into it on accident and getting stung. Like I said at the beginning of this video, this is the first beehive that we've had, and we're really excited about this. My wife has done a lot of research on how to take care of these bees and what to expect. So hopefully it goes well, and if so, we're planning on maybe expanding a little bit, maybe adding a few more hives next year. And hopefully in the future I'll be sharing a few more videos on what we learned from this process and what works for us, and maybe a few projects like building the beehive boxes from scratch and a few more projects for the bees. Also, if you guys have any tips or suggestions for beekeeping, please let me know down in the comments below, and I'll be keeping an eye out for that and would love to learn from you guys. The stand is just finished now, and I'll show you guys what this looks like with the finished beehive on top. We don't have the bees in it yet, but they will be arriving the day that this goes live on YouTube. Now, as the video wraps up, I want to give a big shout out to all my supporters on Patreon. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for investing into the channel and helping me continue to create content like this. And if anyone wants to check out my Patreon page, you can go down in the description of this video. Check that out and see if that's something you'd be interested in. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, hit that like button down below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this. Thanks so much. I'll see you guys in the next one.